The occasional nuclear cat.
You don't have a cat, then there's no issue.
We have 2. But I have small.
Yeah, we had a cat, so I can go out to the office and set stuff up out there, and there I go again. Ah.
Box, I think.
I know I'm the one freezing, but it's fun to watch all of y'all sit still all at once. It's kind of cool.
We're freezing too. We're talking about how you have cats.
Yeah. Sure. So. Oh. Mike with the big background there.
Never played around with backgrounds before.
I'm trying to see what's on your shelf back there.
Yeah, the problem is I've tried that, but it's even I had my whole head disappear on my virtual background. So.
Oh, look, there we go. Oh, there's some up there.
Yeah. Nice. A few games up there. Some books.
Yep.
I like the shelves that have the closed door.
What's that?
I like the glass closed doors like that.
Yeah. This was given to my grandparents by a lawyer that was renting an apartment from them back in the 50s.
Yeah.
And it's a 4-section, so each one of these is its own little section that comes apart.
My grandmother had a set like that in her living room, and when she passed away and they were clearing out the house and everything, I had told my mom, I said, I would like those shelves if we can get them. Well, I had to get the house cleared out because they were going to be selling it, so they had put it at the place next door where I had some cousins living. They left them out on the porch, and they kind of got wrecked. Yeah, and that was very disappointing. Now, I did get, I can't really angle the computer well enough to show them. I did get the books that were in there, one of the sets of books. I have the Americanized, what's the actual title on it? It is the Americanized Encyclopedia Britannica from 1912 or something like that, but it's the full set of them. So, yeah it's pretty cool. So it's like 10, 11 volumes. So I've got the books, but I didn't get the bookcase. I can live with that, right? I got built-ins down here in the library, so I got shelves. It just would have been nice to have had one of the pieces of furniture from my grandmother's place. So
right.
Yeah, they don't make them like that anymore. So
True.
Yeah, we're not going to ask Andy to show us what's in the closet because there's probably some skeletons.
That's where I keep the bodies, man.
Andy's like the most vicious Canadian you've ever run across.
Yeah, I can get very vicious, sort of Wolverine-like. Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have the looks or the body. I just got the attitude.
You don't have the claws?
No. Had to register them up here.
The real question is, do you have any of the ketchup potato chips? Saw that recently.
Yeah, we got the good old storm chips, man.
There was Andy might not have seen it in the forums. There was a discussion going where one of the guys over in the UK was wanting one of the Canadians to send him some of the ketchup flavored potato chips, but it was a very specific brand of the ketchup flavored potato chips. And all us down here south of the wall were kind of like, why don't we have these? It's not like Canada's that far of a trip that these couldn't migrate their way south for the winter.
And you think Americans would love ketchup flavored potatoes?
Yeah.
Yeah, God.
And then I was wondering if in over Scotland and England if they had the H brown sauce. But
yeah. Who knows? But yeah, so the ketchup flavored potato chips became kind of a running gag there for a little bit. So.
They still don't actually. I don't think everybody got it.
Yeah, we got poutine flavor.
Poutine?
Yeah. Beautiful.
Does that really count as food? I mean, I gotta ask. Does that really count as food, or is that sort of like just a heart attack on a plate?
Yeah. There's so many different versions. That's
Does in Quebec.
Yeah, that's right. That's for sure.
So, all right, who's drinking what tonight?
I'm drinking light. I've just got water. I'll admit to it.
I'm still drinking. It's a unlimited single malt scotch, but it's aged in rum barrel.
Taking it easy.
Taking it.
I've got my usual cider going on
Right
down
on.
here. Yeah,
I had earlier, but I've migrated to coffee for the rest of the evening.
He has a game of Empire of the Sun set up.
You have a room at the cabin for an Empire of the Sun setup?
I actually, I think Star Wars Rebellion is about to add the expansion.
Yeah. Hey, if any of y'all are running dual monitors and can like pop over to the YouTube feed and just see, make sure it's actually still running, and see if there's anybody over there at all.
I've got it on my phone. I'll pull it up.
Why would anybody not?
Well, because it's opening weekend for the NFL.
It's a school night, right? Yeah.
We're going up against Cyrano, doing one of his battles too.
Is he?
Is
Yeah.
it tonight?
Yeah.
I didn't know he was live tonight. He was one of the guys that RSVP'd to this. What a twit. I didn't know he was
I used
playing
to go over
tonight.
there and leave a message.
Yeah. I think we should totally all comment bomb his live stream.
All the people you invited, I don't think this is going to be probably big.
What the heck? He is live. He's playing Commands and Colors. So, go yell at him.
One go to find me. Oh, here it is. There's my own worst enemy. I don't think that. Oh, here we go. Live stream. That's getting to the classroom. Are you sure you're streaming this?
No. I should
Oh, here we
be.
go.
Look
Here we
under
go. Live
Dragoon
now.
Commander.
I see it. Fine.
That's where we should be.
Handsome guys on there. That's all I see.
Yeah, you got the wrong thing, man.
Yeah.
You've clearly dialed up the wrong feed.
I don't see anybody. Let's see. One watching now. That's me.
Funny. Yeah, for a while there, when I was watching Saturday Night Fights from the desk at the soccer place, I would have it on the main computer where I also run the register and the field check-ins, and that's where I'd have the audio because the speakers are pretty good there and they're facing me instead of going out the back of the machine towards the crowd in there. But then I would also pull it up like on my personal laptop and on the second computer in there, and I would just mute those. That way it looked like the numbers were going up a little bit on how many people were watching. So there were some nights where there were like 9 people watching and 3 or 4 of them were me. Just trying to help Cyrano get his numbers up.
I just posted over there. I said the Armchair Dragoons happy hour group is putting record.
Yeah.
Gotta be.
Yeah, well, now we know.
Like they would be playing anything.
How dare they play war games instead of joining us for happy hour to talk about them? What's the matter with these guys? The heck? So,
They need to grow up.
yeah. Well, now we know where they are. So,
They have 10 watching now, so they're not doing all that. And one of those is me. So only
well, if if one of y'all has an easy way to keep an eye on the chat over there, just in case somebody pops up. So, all right. So, Andy, what are you playing these days anyway? Besides the deck construction game.
Yeah, it's, basically, I've been playing this new, I think it's called Mars Z or something like that, sort of a new tower defense type of thing.
Okay.
Playing that on the PC, and that's been sort of keeping me busy in between trying to saw off my appendages and, doing like handyman stuff outside before the snow flies.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny, you talk about a deck construction game and everybody's immediately thinking cards, but you've actually been constructing a deck all summer.
Deck, yeah. Yeah, it actually looks very similar to an aircraft carrier deck. I tried to put a little side piece on and, launch sort of like diagonally. Going to put the catapult on next year.
That's for launching the kids into the pool, right?
Yeah, very fast.
Did the wife balk at the control tower?
Didn't tell her about it yet.
Oh. Let's hope she's not watching.
That'd be a surprise. Along with the radar.
Yeah. I can help with both of them.
I'm sure you can, Mr. FAA guy. Mike, I thought about you earlier this week. I had some chucklehead busting out all the 9/11 conspiracy theories. Not the 9/11 was an inside job stuff, but the all in the aftermath, right? All the secret flights of politicians escaping the country, and yeah, I was like,
So you thought of me?
No, the other Mike.
Oh.
Too many guys named Mike around here. One of y'all's got to be Fred, right? We don't have any Freds, so it's always fun the mixture of screen names with real names, because with my screen name of Bayonet Brant, sometimes people refer to it as BB. Except we got BB Mike, who also gets referred to as BB. And then occasionally we'll have Brian Boyer pop in, who gets referred to as, you guessed it. And then we've got like 3 or 4 dudes named either James or Jim floating around. We've got a couple of guys named Mike. And yeah, sometimes you're not 100% sure who people are yelling at. That's always entertaining. So, Gordon, what are you playing these days?
Well, I'm only playing virtually these days. That our Friday night group has been using TTS to mostly to play. The guy did his own implementation of Starmada,
Okay.
which is an SF Minis board game, and just did an implementation of History of the World.
Okay.
We usually do casual stuff on Friday nights. Nobody wants to do any heavy thinking. So
Yeah. Not on a Friday.
And another guy's starting to run a role-playing campaign on using Zoom Meet, TTS to run the minis, the actual minis battles.
Okay.
He's very ambitious about doing character designs and stuff for minis and TTS. Taking figures, then using Blender to modify them and various other things.
Are you guys streaming it at all, or just
Well, it's
self-contained? Okay.
But I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm sure at least half the people in the game would not want it streamed.
The last thing I heard on Zoom was they were working on a dice roll.
Yeah.
Did they ever do that? That would really make it easier.
All of that like I said, when it comes to dice stuff, it's strictly been using this stuff in TTA. The guy does his own implementations. Got a little sort of a circular combo roller from somewhere that basically you can pick how many dice you want to roll. You press it and it rolls.
That's being run over on the other channel right now.
Yeah, I think that's the standard for
some standard thing that they
Yeah, because OJ's dad uses you guys use that all the time in the regular Saturday Night Fights game.
Somebody who did that in the workshop for TTS, Mr. Stump. He's done a lot of add-ons and a lot of sample code with things for Tabletop Simulator.
Okay.
And then the 2 new games I've gotten, but God knows when I'm going to play them, unless I play them against myself, are
Nothing wrong with that.
Island
Okay.
which has here, and I can't resist. And how can I complain when my ancestor's house actually is on the map,
Oh, there you go.
indicated on the map, and a rather unusual French game on Verdun, which has some interesting artwork.
Okay.
Sometimes
So-
I'm a sucker for these attrition battle games.
So pretty much anything World War One.
Oh, and like El Alamein or... Well, you know, historically, I go back to when I first started, first got into war games many decades ago, serious war games, and they had them at the base exchange and stuff. About the first game I got, and the one that I really liked for a long time, was Avalon Hill's 1914.
Yeah.
So that's essentially what I started out on.
OJ's dad, how goes the implementation of Der Weltkrieg in Tabletop Simulator at this point?
Good. I got the first module for Italian Front built, and I think Bob and I are hoping here in the next week or so to play test it.
Have you talked to the publisher at all about it?
yet.
You're just winging it. See what you come up with.
Just winging it. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if they would help out with any kind of graphic support at all, or if they would have yelled at you for doing it.
You know, the biggest issue is they need to redo the map. Seriously, that map is just, you know, you get into some areas on that map and you just can't even see the hex boxes or the hex numbers because they've used such dark colors for the mountains and the alpines and stuff. That's really where it's at. I think everything else I've got my arms wrapped around.
Yeah, there are some painful maps out there. So. All right, so you and Bob gonna start playing with this thing soon-ish?
I hope so. He was doing some things this weekend with some friends that were, I think, coming in from out of town for a few days. So, just, you know, of course, having a 7-hour time difference doesn't help. And but yeah, we're hoping. I'm hoping that maybe this next weekend that we'll, you know, sometime on Saturday we'll be able to sit down and start walking through it.
He had mentioned trying to stay up late for this, and I was thinking, Bob, I appreciate the noble gesture and all, but we all know better, right?
He hasn't made it to a Saturday night fight yet.
I know. It's gonna be 2 a.m. for you. Like, there's no way.
Well, we were playing that game last night, and Ian Jackson's from England, and it was like 4:00 in the morning when we were finishing up over there.
Yeah, but Ian's like 20 years younger than Bob too.
Maybe, but still, I mean, still, the point is, it's 4:00 in the morning.
Yes.
You know, it was like when we started.
We used to have this running gag at the radio station that somewhere around 3:30 in the morning was when it officially changed from too late to too early. Because around 3:30 in the morning, if you were ever working the overnight shift at the radio station, that's when you would stop getting phone calls for, hey dude, we're up late partying, play this for us. And you'd start getting calls for, oh man, I had to drag my ass out of bed early. Can you play this song to help get me moving this morning? You know, that around 3:30 in the morning is when those calls would change from, hey, we're still up, to, oh my God, I had to get up. So we decided that that's the dividing line between too early and too late.
Yep.
So. All right, BB Mike, other than My Own Worst Enemy, what else you playing? Or is that it?
Oh, that's about it. Playing one last battles on that. That's just pretty fun.
Yeah.
Played it.
You just rigged up what, like some PVC pipe and an old cell phone? Is that what you're filming with?
It's like 2 iPhones, my current iPhone and the previous. It's actually doing a pretty decent job. Well, I don't like the quality of the video, but you know, looking at what's out there, it's cool to see.
Yeah.
I did upload a 4K. It looked good. YouTube is really finicky.
Yeah. Yeah, YouTube can be a little tough sometimes.
I got that going. I got Star Wars Rebellion, the actual Carol.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got it. And I actually ordered, and this is your
You're cutting in and out on the audio some. Maybe it's just my connection, but
Nah, I think he's cutting out on most of us.
okay. Well, I'm never really sure because, like, when you guys start to freeze, apparently it's on my end.
No one's
So-
playing
Yeah.
Xbox here.
Yeah. Well.
No, I was saying I ordered Forbidden Lands because he went hard.
Yeah. So I was really looking at adding that box onto my pledge for the Twilight 2000 order, but like the whole thing's gonna ship next summer, and I'm like, I'm gonna want a copy of Forbidden Lands before then. So
It is beautiful.
yeah,
The books alone, you get that nice double set.
yeah, I'm gonna take the plunge. It's just a question of when.
Yeah.
So
And then I actually, I treated myself recently. I've been a Noble Knight game. I've been on there watching
yeah,
Battle. So I got a copy of Battle.
copy of what?
Battle,
Oh, okay.
like the ambush, like ambush.
Yeah.
Volunteer. So that's the next one.
When you get a second, go look up what Noble Knight is selling Maneuver Warrior for.
Great too.
And then realize that I've got like the pieces to assemble 80 copies of that out in my office right now. Because I've still got all the counter sheets, and I would just have to print the rest of it.
Well, when we do a podcast recording on, if we do one on the Pacific Theater, ask me about that.
Yeah. We still need somebody else to join as the second seat on that one. So you got to scrounge up another podcast guest with us.
Or either that, or we're gonna have more topics.
Yeah.
We'll
Well.
work out something. But yeah, somebody else should jump in.
So. I don't know that Gordon's enough of a fan of the Pacific Theater to want to hop in on that one.
I'm not either, so that's not an issue.
You're the guy that orders every PTO game that comes out
I
on
do.
pre-order.
I do.
Oh.
Oh, I don't know if I'd have the time. I do have two different versions of Flat Top,
I do too. That's the part.
and I think the only times I played it was back when it was strictly the Battle Line one. I do remember I managed to suck as a Japanese, I managed to suck the American player and was launching his major airstrike against my seaplane carriers because they registered as carriers.
That's Fog of War for you. See, this is when we're all going to pick on Gordon and point out that when the Battle Line series was in print, like, I wasn't born.
Ooh.
And I'm getting real close to 50.
Well, say though, you wasn't born until after Nixon had left the White House either, so.
No, that's not true. I'm not that young. So, it is nice having a couple of the kids around on the website, though. Like, Command Tent, I think, was actually born in the 90s. So
I didn't know
it's
that. I didn't need to know that.
yeah, he's one of the youngest dudes around. So it's nice having a couple of the kids floating around these days. Be nice to have a few more of them, but we'll take what we can get. So.
Scared the rest of those kids.
There was so Gordon's known me for close to 15 years now at this point, working Origins stuff with the War College, and 2006, 2007, 2008, I was there as a speaker at the War College before we started doing the team wargaming events, what we now call the CPXs, before we started doing those through the War College. But one of the things that I used to somehow get drafted into moderating a panel most years with a bunch of the professionals that were there, that we would do a pretty freewheeling panel on games and sims for military training. And so we'd have folks like John Tiller, Joe Miranda, Chris Weave. Starrett, whenever he was there, was always a part of this panel. And there was a running gag going for a while, and I think Chris Weave and Paul Weber started it about, how long in minutes into the into this 2-hour panel before it goes off the rails and Brant, as the moderator, completely loses control. And I'm not sure we ever hit double digits. I mean, it would happen pretty quickly. But because all of these guys were all pretty well professionally distinguished and all a couple of years older than me, like I was always the kid brother at the table. And it was fine. Like, it didn't bother me at all. You know, it was a good time. Connections 2010 was in Dayton, Ohio. And Matt had drafted me to be at one of the panel co-chairs. And so there was me and then one of James Sterrett's students were on the panel there. And then I got Pete Bogdasarian, the designer of the Core Command games, and Tank on Tank. Pete came out as one of the guests on the panel and gave a talk also. And it was funny, like, partway through one of the panels, because a lot of the people that were at Connections that year, a lot of the Origins regulars, because of the proximity of Dayton to Columbus. So, you know, Merle was there. Colonel Walters was there. There were a bunch of folks that had known me for a bunch of years and had seen me at Origins as a part of, you know, the different panels that, you know, Gordon used to help schedule on. Well, I guess Gordon, you still help schedule them when they happen. And so, like, in the middle of the panel, I sort of stopped and I looked around for a second, and some of the guys, like Snyder, could tell, like, I was a little perplexed for a second. They looked at me and they're like, "Dude, what's up?" And I'm like, "You know, I just realized this is the first time I've ever been on a wargaming panel where I'm the oldest one on the panel. Like, that had never happened to me before." Because I had a couple years on both Mike Martin and Pete, and I was like, "This is weird. Like, this is not supposed to happen where I'm the old guy on a wargaming panel." And of course, it was probably John Compton made some snarky remark about, you know, get used to it. It's going to start happening more and more. So, and it has. I'm now starting to be the older guy on the panels. I mean, it's a good thing, right?
I'll have to remember that for the next Origins, because I've had a hard time getting any panels together these days, because people just don't seem to want to do panel stuff lately.
Yeah. Well, the issue you've got with any of our folks is we're a little busy, right? Yep. We've got a whole area on the floor where, I mean, Mike's still crawling under tables trying to find missing Japanese infantry counters.
These days, it's your folks, NSDM folks, and like 3 other people.
Yeah.
Matt, me, and a couple of other people, and that's it. So.
Yeah, we're gonna see if we can't help you staff up the wargaming panels a little bit, and bring in some of the guys from Goose, see if we can get some of them to come in and talk. I still think there's got to be a better way to approach the military history program at Ohio State. Get some of those kids to come down and talk.
We've tried that several times, and although years ago I think Gil Martin came once, but none of the students came. He didn't bring anybody with him.
Yeah.
And that's about it. And we've made a few approaches to them since then, or various people there, and apparently has gotten nothing back.
Yeah.
Crickets.
We'll talk about it later. So one of these days. So Andy, you're the only guy on this call that has not made it to Origins. You're gonna have to come down to Ohio one of these days.
If they ever open the border again.
Yeah.
Hey, even NSDM has a Canadian that comes down, so.
Hey, there we go.
Yes, but that was pre-plague. Right. That was before we were having pandemic issues.
Well, obviously, nothing's happened since we've had pandemic issues. We couldn't even get a virtual Origins.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't the fault of the pandemic.
No.
So yeah, Andy, there are already Canadians that do successfully attend Origins and return home.
Wow.
So.
Oh my God! All right, I'm gonna try it.
Well, it's funny because Vance would ride down with Rob Crandall from On Target Sims. One of them would pick up the other one on their way by. I think Rob picked up Vance on his way by.
No, I think it was the opposite.
Was it the opposite?
Doesn't Rob live in Buffalo?
No, Rob's in Toronto.
He's okay, but Vance lives up in Ontario.
Vance is in Ottawa, I thought.
Ottawa, excuse me.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so he picks up Crandall there in Toronto and on his way down.
Yeah. And so they come down and, you know, they're gaming, they're goofing off, they're having fun. They go home with a trunk full of games because then Vance doesn't have to pay shipping and deal with customs getting stuff back across the border. So that they go home with a pallet full of games in the trunk.
Yeah, God, I can see it now. Stuffing them in the hubcaps, you know.
Yeah,
Well, no, they fly right through customs because customs is like, "Port that go.
yeah,
2 geeks get out of here."
yeah. It's not smuggled timber. We don't care.
Yeah,
There's no ketchup chips here. Keep moving.
yeah, that's right.
Well, they'd be going the other way if it was a ketchup chips issue.
Yeah.
So, one of these days we got to get SDR to come out and join us at Origins because he's a pretty significant tabletop gamer. Let's see if we can get him to come join us. So, the for anybody watching this that's curious about the reference, SDR is on the forums as Silent Disapproval Robot, and I don't know. Migsy, you may remember. I don't know about the rest of them. Back at Wargamer, so this was over 10 years ago, when SDR first joined the forums under that name. I think he had been around under a different name and then switched his account and first joined under that name. He didn't say a word for like 6 months. Whenever somebody would post something, and it was a perfect way to live up to the name. Somebody would post something that he just thought was kind of stupid. He would quote it and then just underneath put ... And because his screen name was Silent Disapproval Robot, it fit so perfectly. Somebody would post, I think ASL is a wonderful game, and he would quote that just ... And when your screen name is Silent Disapproval Robot, it fits so well. I mean, it was...
Yeah, I forgot about that.
It was this utterly genius form. And truthfully, if he had been sort of double screen naming in the forums with one as SDR and then one as his real self commenting on things, nobody would have cared because the SDR motif was just such genius. It was really damn funny. And
Wasn't even using emojis.
no, he wasn't even using emojis. He would seriously, all he would ever do is he would quote whatever it was he was disagreeing with, and then underneath he would just type ... That was it. And the screen name did the rest.
Yeah, it was so hard to argue with.
Yeah, well, there's that. But that was a small moment of internet brilliance that was lost forever when they nuked the archived Wargamer forums. But
Yes, God.
it was a riot. So
Yeah, that wasn't yesterday, man. Holy.
yeah, it's been a while. It's been a minute or two. So OJ's dad, you look like you're actually keeping up with a StarCraft game while having us on the second screen there.
Nope.
Yeah,
I flipped over to the YouTube channel there for a second to see if there was anybody there, and
it says we have 5 watching, but I'm assuming we have 5.
How many of them are us, though? That's the
That's
question.
what I'm saying. I think it's all.
It's not
yeah, I don't think.
Cyrano has 77.
He doesn't have 71 people watching, does he?
Oh no, that's 70 views. What is this?
watching and 69 bots.
Yeah, they must have finished us all. He had 71 viewers. So he's done. You think he'd come up here and join us?
Are they done?
Yeah.
I can message him. Somewhere, maybe. Wasn't Martok wasn't going to be able to join because he's got a Ferengi for a communications officer or something, right? Wasn't that his problem?
He just, I wish he would join us.
Yeah, but he didn't have any audio working, so like he couldn't hear us, we couldn't hear him.
We'll go fund me for his.
Yeah, for a headset, right? So hang on, I'm messaging Cyrano quick.
Yeah, I just pinged him in Steam chat. Doesn't necessarily mean he's in front of his computer, though.
Yeah. You get him on Steam Chat. I'll text him. Somebody else send him a message on Facebook. Somebody tweet him. We'll hit him every possible direction, and he'll hate us all for it. So, all right. So, Gordon, of those new ones, which one are you actually going to get to the table first?
Good question. Don't want to make a prediction. I'm also going to have the other one, which I should have as soon as the GMT gets shipping it, because I got a notice they charged me for it. Is the Finnish Civil War coin series game.
Oh, what is that? All Bridges Burning. Yeah. They'll
give me two Finnish Civil War games.
Is that actually a coin series game, or was it coin inspired? Because I've heard both.
Well, it's supposedly a coin series game, and it's not designed by Volky. It's done by a guy in Finland, but
yeah.
It's a 3-sided thing, which is going to be unusual.
Okay.
But it is supposedly they're advertising it as a coin series game. So
okay.
We'll see. Ultimately, I don't have any other coin series games, so I can't have a direct comparison on that.
Gotcha.
But Finnish Civil War, as I said back at actually it was Connections in Quantico when I was a co-chair for a panel thing. Never would have thought I'd ever see a game in print in that, but with desktop publishing and things so easier to get published nowadays, all sorts of interesting, unusual topics.
Yeah.
It's sort of a personal interest thing since my mother's side of the family immigrated from Finland here, both her parents.
Which side of the Civil War were they on?
They were before World War One. My grandmother came over in 1914 on the Lusitania.
Oh wow! Well, at least she caught it in the right direction.
Yes, and before the war started, just before the war started.
Well, that helps. That helps.
Hey Gordon, have you ordered 1918, 1919 from GMT?
No.
Okay.
I don't have. I'm very conservative. I'm very sparse on my game purchases these days, since I already have more than I'll ever play.
Sure.
And
I know. Yeah. Well, why would that stop you? I don't. I'm at that point 10 years ago.
That does not compute.
I also have more than I really have space for. That's another story.
Again, I don't understand.
Yeah. Well, that's when you sell the X to buy the new.
Well, I've been doing some of that. The ones I actually think I'll never even look at again, I have been selling to the extent I can. And the ones that are worth enough that if I could sell it for the right price, I'd sell even if I thought I might look at them again, but I haven't been aggressively pursuing that.
Clearly, there aren't enough new things that you want for you to be forced to sell the old stuff. So, hey, so OJ's dad, I'm guessing you've got 1918, 1919 on order?
Yep, I got that, and Next War Vietnam.
Okay.
And they're supposed to both bill up by the end of the month and ship at the beginning of next month.
So what's the core shtick in the 1918, 1919 game? What is it that World War I can get extended into 1919?
Yep, exactly. That extends on into one more year.
Yeah.
So, yep.
So. And then Harry Turtle loves Aliens Invade?
No, don't mention Turtle Dove. Come on.
All right, I'm gonna try and slide the computer
so much money
here.
on his books.
Hang on. I gotta walk back to the shelf behind me here real quick.
I actually his World War II series I like.
He had a lot of good premise in some of his books.
Yeah.
But then he would, some of those books though they would just kind of like have storylines that just would end up going nowhere.
And they were
the World War II series where the aliens invaded, he had like a whole trilogy of books there after the initial war had they got peace. Then he had the next follow-up trilogy, and it was just like,
I never read those.
What was this? Yeah, I mean, they didn't go anywhere. It was just kind of like, why?
It seems to want to drag on series long after they've exhausted their purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard some people claim that it's not always him, that its fan base or its publishers trying to milk.
Well, the publisher's always going to try and milk it as long as they can.
Right. Yeah.
Like, oh, we're still selling good on this series. Give me another one.
But, with Turtle, you would read his World War II series, then you'd read, like, another series. And you have the same type of characters, the same subplot. You're like, I read this.
Yeah.
Can y'all?
Like the Great War series, there's.
Yep. We can't hear you, Brant.
No, I wasn't saying anything. I was just holding it up. So it's showing up backwards on my screen. Is it showing up reversed for you guys?
No.
Nope.
Right.
The Great War 1914 and 1919.
Yeah. Notice who one of the co-authors is? It's Pershing.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay.
So this was published in 1919, and I've always thought it was interesting that the contemporary book dragged World War I all the way out to 1919. This is like the only reference I've ever seen that kept World War I going all the way into 1919. In the way in which it's approached. So, but what's interesting also, though, is that there's virtually no mention at all of the Allied expedition to Russia in 1918, 1919.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought when they carried 1919, and if it actually was history, they'd have to be around the Murmansk thing and around the stuff in the Far East.
Yeah, that's what you would have thought, but there's virtually no mention of the Allied expedition to Murmansk. Now I've got another book up here somewhere that's where do you go? When Hell Froze Over is a history of the Murmansk expedition, and it's funny because like I grabbed that because I'd actually heard about that expedition back when I was in high school. Is when I found out about it when my dad was stationed at Fort Sill my last 2 years of high school, and it's the home of field artillery. But there is an infantry battalion that was stationed there at the time that was part of one of the artillery brigades, and they were there. Their official mission was primarily schoolhouse support for the field artillery school, but they also it was an unofficial thing, but they had a security mission for the Pershing missile battalion that was there on post as well. But that unit, their nickname, and their crest had a polar bear on it. Their nickname was the Polar Bears. It's 4th Battalion, 32nd Infantry, I think. I don't remember for sure. But they traced their lineage back to the Murmansk expedition. And so I was joking one day with my dad. I was like, who the hell stuck a battalion called the Polar Bears in the middle of Oklahoma, right? Talk about a non-polar environment, right? I mean, it's, your low in the summer is in the 90s. It's 3 in the morning and it's 92 degrees outside. And so my dad was giving me a short rundown of where the nickname for that battalion had come from. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. So, back in high school, I knew about this whole Allied expedition to try and stop the Russian Revolution and everything. Years later, I saw this book. It was like 50 cents at the bookstore when they were clearing some stuff out. So I grabbed it. I was like, 50 cents. How bad can it be? And it's a decent book. But then I found out, just reading the author credits in the back and everything, it was actually written by a history professor that was at NC State at the same time that I was there. Now, it wasn't anybody that I had studied under at all. I took a bunch of history classes while I was there, but it was mostly ancient stuff, ancient medieval history. But I was like, oh, well, that's kind of a neat connection. So, but yeah, the Pershing book doesn't talk about the Allied expedition at all, which given that they dragged the history of the war into 1919, you would think they would. So,
what did they talk about to get it into 19?
Sort of trying to demobilize the Germans. Because
how did that work out?
Yeah, fine for a couple of years. Well, and so people that know a lot more about so like OJ's dad will probably correct half of what I'm about to try and say here, but one of the biggest issues with the German army post World War I was that they were pissed. Like, they didn't lose militarily. I mean, when the German army surrendered in World War I, they were in France. Like, they hadn't been pushed back into Germany at all. Like, what did they lose? You know, a lot of the German army kind of felt like the politicians stabbed him in the back. Like, why would you surrender when we've got a winning position here? Why did you give all these things away when we're sitting on the ground? You know, that you gave all this up. So the German army post World War I was not real happy with their people back home. Mike, how much of that did I screw up?
Honestly, I don't know.
Oh,
for
okay.
sure. But you're right. What really happened though is it was starvation, right, or lack of food. It was the civilian population that was tired of food rationing and shortage of food, and
Yeah.
in fact, I just stumbled across a book. I haven't read it. I don't have a copy of it, where the author basically was talking about World War I came down to food for both England and Germany, and who could basically get the other one to submit by cutting off their food supplies.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a YouTube comment. So John Stanley, hi John, who's actually like watching. He was asking any mention by Pershing of the Spanish flu, and going through here again. Pershing's a co-author in the book. I refer to it as the Pershing book. Thomas H. Russell's the primary author, but it's the official story of the American operations in France. So that's probably why the Murmansk folks aren't really talked about in here. But no, there's not really much mention of the Spanish flu, and I think in part this is a bit of a cheerleading book. This is a bit of a we did everything right, rah rah rah, go America kind of thing. So there's not a ton of that in there. I do like, chapter, 17, Aero Military Operations. So, where is it? Aerial attacks on cities, some of the achievements of the airmen in the Great War. Deeds of heroism and daring, Zeppelins in action. So, but, yeah. So no direct mention of Spanish flu as kind of an issue in there. It's also been, a while since I read the book. I didn't read it cover to cover. I read a bunch of chapters of it here and there. It was, I'm a sucker for old books. Like, that's why I've still got this one here. That's why I've got my grandmother's Encyclopedia Britannica. So.
I just ordered a book from 1964. So.
Was it a 1964 printing, or is it a reprint of a book written in 64?
Print.
Yeah. What's the oldest book you got in your library, Mike? Or BB Mike? Either Mike.
Turtle Dove back there.
You're not seeing Turtle Dove on my shelf. There you go.
Oh.
What's the date on it?
Are there dragons on any of them?
No.
Are the maps complete?
Are the maps complete?
I'm looking for a date. I'm not seeing one.
Had they found Antarctica?
Alaska may not have been a state by this time. I don't see a date on I don't see a published.
My dad was born before Alaska was a state. That's,
I think this was my one of my grandparents' geography books in school, actually. So it would be back in the 30s.
Yeah. When my high school English teacher they were getting ready to do a bunch of renovations in that wing of the building, and so he was clearing out his office, and he was giving away a bunch of his older books. What do we got? It's too small for me to see on the screen.
1925 is
25.
the last.
There you go.
Yep.
That's excellent.
So the first one was 1916 and 1920, 1925.
That's awesome. So, and my high school English teacher was giving away a bunch of older books that he had hung on to over the years, but decided he didn't want anymore. And so I've got a series of these beacon lights of literature that were old high school English textbooks from way back when. And they're from the 20s, 30s, 40s era. My godfather had come to visit at one point. My godfather was my dad's high school principal. My godfather had come to visit at one point, and he saw those on my shelf. He's like, holy cow. He's like, those were my textbooks when I was in high school. So I've got those. I think the oldest thing I've got, somewhere up here, I've got a book that was published in 1898. It's the 1898 printing, because it's an English literature textbook, and it's talking about current poets, and it's the Brownings. Um, so anybody that knows English lit knows that's a little on the old side. So that was kind of fun. Gordon, you got to have something old laying around in there somewhere, right?
Well, as mentioned, geography. I do have this old geography textbook called Essential Geography, second book, which was published in 1916. But I know I've got older stuff like these.
Gordon's going to come back with a scroll.
No, that would be fun.
I have this feeling Gordon's coming back with a scroll or a clay tablet or something.
Clay tablet. Wondering now what the oldest place.
No, I'm gonna come back with a government book.
Uh-oh. Gordon's checking dates here.
Annual reports of the War Department. Fiscal year ended June 30th, 1899.
There you go. I was gonna say, if it was the War Department, it's pre-World War II.
And I've got a couple older ones, I think, too.
Wow.
These are interesting.
That's back when the Army was small enough that you knew everybody by name.
Report of the Secretary of War. Volume 3, 1877.
Oh.
That's... Wow.
That's just Volume 3.
I don't like the rules to Empire.
That's the, so that's the 1877 printing you've got there, Gordon?
Oh, yeah, these are original.
Oh, wow. Did you, like, smuggle those out of the Pentagon on some stray trip there or
Well,
something?
actually, one of our Coast Defense members was actually purging his library and was basically giving them away.
Wow.
They even have fold-out maps.
So wait, did Canada even exist back then? Was it still just a crown province?
Yeah.
Canada was, what is it, 1869?
Andy, what's the founding date for Canada?
1867.
1867.
That's right.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's all right, though. Not bad. You can't go wrong there.
So you're 10 years old.
Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, God, I was there last week.
Yeah, you want to. So here in the U.S., like a bunch of the sports leagues have gone into their bubbles to play their games where they're sort of isolating everybody. The Canadian Soccer League, the Canadian Premier League, didn't just go into a bubble. They occupied Prince Edward Island and sort of pulled the bridges up. They put the entire league out on Prince Edward Island, and they're playing everything at the university out there. They're using the university stadium.
Bridge, so.
Yeah, that's right.
But they've, I mean, there's only 8 teams in the league, and so they, because a couple of the bigger cities have teams in the MLS.
Well, our league hockey is all playing in Canada.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, the Canadians won't let the team go back and forth. So
Yeah.
Toronto baseball team is playing in Buffalo. It's their home games.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, you can tell which sports take priority, you know.
Of course.
Yeah.
so how are those Canadian teams doing in the hockey playoffs anyway?
Oh God. You know what? yeah. At least I'm not a Leafs fan. Go ahead.
Actually, are there any Canadian teams left?
Nope. It's Dallas and Las Vegas out west, and Tampa and the Islanders in the east.
That's right. Yeah, we lost the Tampa thing.
We always resort to, most of those teams are stacked with Canadians, but that's not
Yes.
even the truth anymore, right? They're all coming from everywhere. God.
Actually, I think Tampa's got a pretty hefty Canadian contingent on it. So.
No original 6 teams still playing.
Nope.
And
Nope.
it's interesting this year because our Canadian Football League just decided to say, that's it, we can't do it this year. So
I was wondering about that.
yeah, all of us loonies who like free down football
Yeah.
and have end zones that no big enough to land planes in, but
12 guys on the field,
yeah,
unlimited motion.
it's a good wide open sport, but and I mean, and then the other part of the season you drive a snowplow. So
Yeah.
God, yeah, we have a whole different category when it comes to professional up here.
The I just saw a thing over the weekend that the Tampa and Columbus had that epic 5 overtime game during the playoffs a couple of weeks ago, where because they're playing these bubble sites, you've got the game, and then there's a gap between that game and then the next game that was supposed to be played that same day on the same sheet of ice. And the Tampa Columbus game went so long into overtime they bumped the Hurricanes Bruins game to the next morning.
Yes, I know.
And yeah, so Gordon, you were probably waiting for the Bruins game to come on. I was waiting for the Carolina side of it all here. And at the time there was a really funny comment that somebody had made online, because in the preliminary rounds the Hurricanes swept the Rangers. They knocked them out in 3 straight games, and as they're going into the 5th overtime of the Tampa game, the Tampa Columbus game, somebody had tweeted out, it said this game's going to last longer than the entire Canes Rangers series, which one more period it might have. But there was a picture, I hadn't seen it when it happened, but somebody shared it on Twitter, and I just saw it over this weekend, that the scoreboard operator at the game had put up time for the 7th period stretch between periods at the hockey game. And, I mean, it's a dumb joke, but I was giggling at that all day yesterday. It was just so funny. What?
Yeah, they aren't shorty overtimes; they're actual real periods.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I was, usually when there's some kind of delay going on like a national broadcast, a lot of times you can flip over to the local broadcast and you can pick up the game there. And the day that whole Tampa Columbus game went into overtime, it was being broadcast on both the national feed on NBC and on the local feed here with the local channel that carries the Canes games. I was fully prepared to flip over to the Canes game to watch the start of the game while the overtime finished up on the other one, and then I realized they're using the same rink. I was like, that's not going to work. I was like, damn it. So I had to punt on that one, and then ended up turning it on in the background the next morning while I was at work, just so I could watch the game. Andy, we didn't ask you what's the oldest book you got in the collection, or have you digitized everything at this point?
I think the oldest thing I have in my collection is actually, I've got a magazine here somewhere, and I think it's actually from 34 or something like that. And I think that's about it, but it's an aircraft magazine. And as you can expect, these were like, very high-powered aircraft.
Yeah. Your lawnmower probably has more power than...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and go faster. Yeah.
Yeah. BB Mike, did we have an FAA back then?
You did not have an FAA. You didn't even have a seat anymore, which is
Yeah.
Speaking of old but not quite as ancient books, if any of you ever come on really bizarre book that I read back in college and never found a copy of since. It was written in the 50s, called War 1984. And it was a very bizarre thing written by this Air Force lieutenant colonel that envisioned the 3D... We were fighting Russia, fighting the Soviets. They had a 3D blitzkrieg. They had American tanks, stuff landing into Russia, and then being refueled by rockets that literally landed point first, and they deployed refueling hoses to refuel the tanks. And all sorts of bizarre things in it. And
At least you got the...
I remember reading it in first year in college back in the 70s, and I've never seen or been able to find any stuff about it since then.
At least you got the Russia part.
Have you looked on the the Wayback Machine on web.archive.org
I have
or
done a
just
couple
archive.org?
of generic web searches because yeah, I'll check that specifically because Google Books often republishes old stuff too. That the copyrights run out on. And this was published by it wasn't a regular commercial publisher. It was some pseudo government sounding thing, but it wasn't a government publication either. It was a way, but I check every so often. I haven't checked recently, but for some reason that book popped back in my mind. I have to check again.
Yeah, the so archive.org has a bookshelf on there with all kinds of older books.
Okay.
They've got a really good magazine rack with tons of older magazines. What's a lot of fun is go back to like the 1920s and take a look at some of the old pulp magazines. Some of the stories and stuff they were
I
publishing.
actually have a small handful of those old 30s pulp magazines.
Yeah.
Somehow end up in this house.
But it's interesting to see some of the books that they have available in there, though.
Yeah, because Google Books publishes for various reasons get a hold of stuff because I found although I have a photocopy of an original copy, Google Books has I found they also have a PDF copy of the Coast Artillery, which was put out by the Army in 1916.
Back when we still had a Coast Artillery.
Yes. Well, it was a miniatures game, and it was actually something they set up in various forts that played on like a ballroom floor size thing, like you think of a Naval War College type of things.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, it used some aspects of the rules were based off of Jane's naval rules.
Okay. Well, that's cool. So, all right. So, BB Mike, what's hitting the table next out there in the cabin?
What?
You've got your Napoleon's Last Battles. That's the only thing you've got going on then, right?
Well, that's on the cat cruise. I have 2 tables. I've got that on one and Star Wars. I want to get very good to use Cyrano. I was hoping to get Commanding Colors Tricolor.
Oh yeah.
Bought it, stickered it. It's like 800 stickers. I played one game of it. I want to get that back.
Did you bring Gloomhaven out there with you? Get the wife playing?
I did. We finished Gloomhaven. We started the Forgotten Circle.
Okay.
Wasn't this impressed with Forgotten Circle?
Yeah.
I'm just slow down. I did order Frosthaven.
That one hasn't shipped yet though, right? That's still just.
No, not till next year.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say that one's still going through Kickstarterdom. So.
We never had our Gloomhaven podcast.
We tried to do a Gloomhaven podcast. You guys were all
I
too
know.
busy playing to take time out to podcast it. You guys and your darn game
So
playing.
unreasonable.
Huh?
So unreasonable.
I know.
actually want to play your game and not advertise it to everybody.
What the hell?
Now, I do have Old School Tactical Volume 3, so I'm looking at it now.
That's the PTO one, isn't it?
Yeah, how'd you know that? I really, the only one I own. I do need to get that.
So.
I pre-ordered Last 100 Yards specifically.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, OJ's dad, have you gotten the wife to actually sling dice with you on anything?
No. She'll play cards, but no, she's not into most of the games. So.
Up front is a card game. I'm just saying.
Is it?
Yeah. Just don't back it on Kickstarter. You'll be fine. So.
Hey, I was gonna say I have one version of
That.
So they're reprinting up front.
that. Well,
They're redoing up front.
you can get it from Wargame Vault.
That is one of the most infamous Kickstarter flameouts of all time. That they raised $500,000, didn't they? I mean, they raised some really ridiculous amount of money for a war game, and have never produced a damn thing. And if you really want a fun time, bring it up with Cyrano sometime, because he paid in fairly heavy for that. And it ain't happening. It ain't happening.
I sold all my original upfront stuff since I wasn't going to play it, and it was one of the things that was relatively in demand.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but hey, Andy, what do you got coming up next in your game world there?
I don't know. I'm sort of throwing some stuff around there, but actually, one of the things I was looking at was I was going to think of going to pick up the tabletop Xbox or XCOM game. My young fella, he likes that kind of stuff, and my daughter's pretty sharp on that kind of stuff too. So if I can get them sold into it, because it's not going to happen with the wife.
Yeah.
But anyway, both of them are sort of history freaks too. So if that doesn't happen, it'll probably be a World War II based type of scenario going down.
Yeah. Flight simming it or just throwing guys around on the ground?
Ground.
Yeah. You're the MiG master for a reason. Like you're the aviator in the crowd.
Yeah, God, it's been a while.
I don't know if you've seen it on the forums. SDR's been talking about it, and so has Banzai a little bit. But they've got the Core Space game that they've been talking about with the a variety of minis. Very attractive looking game. Very cool stuff on a tabletop. So if that sort of sci-fi skirmish sort of thing is something that might appeal with the kids, it might be worth at least looking through that thread online and seeing if that's something that might appeal.
Yeah, no, definitely will.
So,
Grant, what do you have on the table?
So I've got World at War 85. Actually, one of the scenarios is I kind of had to push it out of the way a little bit because I needed some table space for something else. But it is still set up in the middle of the battle, and I managed to move it without relocating anybody. So I've got that going. I've got on the tablet one that I'm going to be writing an article about. It's not a straight up war game. It's more of an online sort of RPG kind of thing. It's a game called Trader's Empire that I've been playing a bunch of, and it's one of these sort of grindy quest kinds of games. It's very similar to Card Hunter back when Card Hunter was real popular 7-8 years ago. It's a story driven game. You got your little small party of 3-4 dudes fighting your way through different encounters. The storyline on it is actually kind of cool though, where this guy's trying to save the Empire, even though the Empire has sort of branded him as a traitor, and is hunting him down as a criminal. He's still sort of fulfilling his oath to the Emperor, trying to save the Empire. It's a fun little game. I've been playing that for 2-3 months now, and it's again it's a quest driven thing. Different story pieces unlock as you move through the story, but it's been a lot of fun. The other thing I've got, and BB Mike, this is something that you had mentioned online wanting to see. I got those the map cards from Drive Through Cards, where it's these decks of cards. One of them is a land based, one of them is a sea based thing that you can sort of modularly randomize this big different quest terrain. So I started digging through all of the different kinds of decks of cards that I've got for different game assistance stuff, and I'm busy trying to sort of hack together, okay, so how would I use as many of these different decks of cards as I could for like one evening worth of sort of hex crawling across this map and see what I could do. And I've got a deck of chase cards from Pathfinder where you can like pull out 4 or 5 cards and sort of lay them all down face down, and you do like a chase through the city streets. And so as you flip them over, you're sort of randomizing what's happening each step of the chase. So in one of them, you got to dodge a clothesline, and then there's a trash heap, and then around the next alley, and then there's you got to jump a fence or whatever. So that's a very tactical level something. But then on the macro level, there's different encounters in the different spaces on the big maps, and then I've got another deck that is just an encounter deck, so it's just sort of random things that happen to you. The one thing that I need to get a hold of, I've got one of the GM's Apprentice decks, which are really good at randomizing a lot of stuff. But the one I have is the Steampunk deck, and I really need the Fantasy deck for this whole thing. So I think if I end up getting the GM's Apprentice Fantasy deck, then I've got everything I need to sort of pull together this completely card-driven, hacked-together, random sort of map crawl and see how that goes.
I just got it's a deck of cards. It's playing cards, standard playing card deck. It's got on the cards. It has what character might have in their backpack. So it's like you draw a card. If you're a magician, you draw a magician card. It'll tell you, here's what you start with.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
In that, you draw a card. Here's what you start with. Got how much it costs in gold. And
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so
I got a question. Oh,
yeah.
Go ahead, Brand. I thought you was done.
Well, so I've got two different things on the table right now. I got World of War 85, and I got this card-based thing that I'm sort of noodling around with, and then I've got this goofy little tablet thing that I've got going. And then on the computer, I'd started playing around with the old Hex War Ancient Battle Rome, just to try and learn that a little better. It's funny. Every couple of months, I'll pull that up, and I'll get through like 2 or 3 of the tutorial scenarios, and be like, all right, this is kind of cool. And then I'll not be able to get back to it for a couple of months, and so I'll pull it back up, and I've completely forgotten what I learned in those couple of tutorial scenarios. So I played like the first 3 tutorials 5 times each. I got to get beyond those and actually get into the game a little bit more. So.
Yeah. So, for tabletop games, where are you guys buying your games from? Just out of curiosity. Anywhere particular?
So, I've got one order that I'm getting in with GMT here pretty soon as kind of the thank you for them having sent me a couple of games when I was unemployed earlier this summer. I was one of the ones that took advantage of that.
So direct order from them?
Yeah, direct order from them. More often than not, though, if I'm buying something, I try to support Gamers Armory, and I know I'm going to come across as a shill for them, and I don't care because they're a great store and great dudes. And OJ's dad, I know you've been there.
Yep.
So Skyrun's a great store. It's nice. I fully get that I'm a very fortunate dude and that I've got one of the best war game stores in the country 3 miles from my house. And it's run by a guy I really like who is a friend of mine. And so whenever I can, I try to go over there. And right before everything shut down for the pandemic, as they were having to start slowing down things they were doing, I went over there and bought a pair of games from them. And then as soon as they were opened back up for business again, I went over and bought another one just to try and help keep business flowing for those guys. My wife actually ordered a pair of puzzles from them when they were able to ship things to people. So if I'm not ordering direct from the publisher, I'll try and get it from Scott over at Gamers Armory.
Yeah.
So if folks are looking for them online, they do ship online. It's gamersarmory.com. Again, Scott doesn't know I'm plugging them here, but I totally will. So that's where I tend to get them.
Yeah.
So
I was looking around for was it Blue Water Navy from Compass Game? Just kind of looking around some different places. I noticed NWS has it for about the cheapest. I think it's $66 or $89, one of the two, which is like $30-$40 off the list price.
Yeah, Chris tends to sell stuff a little cheaper, and Chris is a nice dude. I really wish he'd update his website because his website is state-of-the-art 2005 technology.
But yeah, I mean, I've got some pre-orders with Compass and GMT. I've ordered from Noble Knights before.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ordered anything from Cool Stuff yet, but I've noticed their prices tend to be pretty good also.
Yeah.
Miniature Market.
What's that?
Miniature Market's about
Miniature Market?
Yeah.
Pretty good sales. And Enterprise Games.
Yeah.
Looking for something out of print.
And I'll admit I've ordered some stuff through Amazon before.
Oh,
I found some pretty good prices in there sometimes, especially if it's a game store that's just using Amazon as their storefront, So I was just curious how much you guys look around, or if you have one or two shops that you prefer to go to and don't price shop too much.
I don't tend to price shop too much.
Okay.
I don't tend to do much, but most of the few games I've gotten have been mostly pre-orders from either GMT or Academy or MMP.
Right.
The only and that French Verdun game, which was a Kickstarter.
Yeah.
We had a local store which I used to play BattleTech at before things set down with the pandemic. That I got a couple of things, oddball games when they were selling off for half price, including one that Hey, Brant may remember this. Is from Lock and Load called Nuclear Winter '68.
Oh yeah. Oh good lord. We talked about that on last season on the podcast on the game ripoffs episode of the podcast. Yeah, there's a story there. So it's that's an interesting one. I have a copy of it. Somebody sent it to me. I didn't buy that one. Somebody sent it to me. But yeah, I've got a copy of it. It's okay. It's more of a gimmick than anything.
Well, yeah, but a lot of that kind of stuff is. But it was,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I say, it was half price and it looked sufficiently different and I didn't hear anything. I didn't read anything too bad about it when I checked it on my phone before I actually decided to buy it.
Yeah. The Mike, you were asking sort of where you get the stuff. Honestly, just thinking back over the last handful of things I've got, there's a couple of review copies that I picked up here and there. There's a handful of things that I bought at Gamers Armory. Other than that, I think the bulk of the stuff that I've got are things that I kickstarted or pre-ordered. And so they're things that were coming directly from the publisher through the pre-order process somehow or another.
Right.
You know, the World of War 85, right? I mean, it's been around for a while at this point. But,
Yeah,
that was a
I got
Kickstarter.
From Academy, but I think almost everything I've gotten from Academy has either been on a Kickstarter or it's from Uwe, who has offered some of us at Connections generous half-price deals.
Yeah, yeah. The copy of 1754 I got, Uwe gave me at Origins one year, but the copy of Mare Nostrum that I've got with all the expansions there, I kickstarted from them. And it's funny, they were getting ready to ship everything, and they were shipping in like May of that year, and I actually sent them an email. I said, I'm going to see you guys at Origins in like 3 weeks. Save the shipping cost, right? I'll get it from you at the show. And when I got to the show, you know, I went over and told them who I was and everything. They actually had it in its own bag with my name, like, stickered to it the way they had brought it to the show with them. So, you know, it wasn't one of those, oh, yeah, let's pull stock off of the shelf. Like, they had my full Kickstarter copy set aside there with them.
Well, I think for the Kickstarter for Mare Nostrum and Thief and Viking and all that, they gave you all that extra stuff with the Kickstarter.
Yeah. Yeah,
they were out and sold separately afterwards, so they had to really sort of bundle it all up at once. And Agents of Mayhem, which is, I still haven't even done anything, hasn't even taken out and done anything with it yet. But I mean, literally, it's with a giant box full of stuff when it eventually showed up.
Yeah, the Mare Nostrum thing was 2 boxes and a whole bunch of other stuff that by the time you shoved it into one of the boxes, the lid was about a half an inch too high.
Okay,
So.
everybody, thanks for joining. That's it for the video here. So good night.
He's still connecting his audio. He didn't hear you.
He didn't even hear us, did he?
He didn't even hear you. Still connecting his audio.
So, you know, I have to say for the new stuff, I tend to either pre-order, mostly Kickstarter pre-order. Help back, but something used, I've been off price. Go to Amazon because they sell new stuff too.
Yep.
I kind of look around for the new stuff.
There's since I've been mostly selling stuff rather than buying stuff, I think the only game I'm at this point looking for that's old and used, and good luck if I ever find a trade or copy for this, is a thing called, Brant will know what this is, called Logistics Command.
Yeah.
Which is a rarely seen game.
Yeah, good luck finding it.
I know someone that has a copy, but he's not interested in selling it.
Well, I think our Dr. Starrett here that's trying to join the call may have a copy of it somewhere. So.
I'm joined. There's just other stuff going on in the background.
I
Look,
got you.
So, Gordon, you need to buy a book on burglary.
So.
There's a copy of Logistics Command sitting in my office, but it's not mine.
Gotcha.
Well, one of our local gamers we game with, or used to face-to-face game with regularly, and has a copy of it, and he let me borrow the rules and stuff, so I actually scan the rules and things, so I have a PDF of the rules and understand how it works, but he didn't seem to be interested in selling or trading the game, at least not a few years ago. I don't know, that may change.
You might post those up onto Board Game Geek if they'll let you.
That's another good place to get used.
Yeah. So, of note for those of you that more general board gamers and fantasy gamers and such, The one of our local game stores here is it's called Event Horizon Games, and they're far more RPG and general board game and lots of collectible card game stuff. They do have a decent tabletop section, but most of their war game stuff is more sort of BattleTech and War Machine focused. Um, they tend to make a lot of their money at that store by renting spaces. They've got like 5 separate rooms in the building that they would make a lot of their money by renting those spaces to groups that would reserve the rooms to come in and play in the evenings. And that has been completely shut down because of all the pandemic stuff. So those guys have put just about everything in the store on sale just to try and get some money coming in. They do have a store set up through eBay, I think it is. But I can try and find a link and post it online. But it's called Event Horizon Games, and they're really cool dudes. They're selling a ton of stuff really cheap. Even if you just order some dice from them, it'll help make a difference for those guys. For me, the whole thing is, more game stores is good for a healthier ecosystem of gamers in whatever community you're in. So for folks far and wide, if you get a chance to place an order from Event Horizon, if they've got anything at all that you'd be interested in, maybe Mike, I know you're also a role player kind of like I am, so there's probably some stuff there. And they've got a pretty hefty selection of older, used, weirder, out of print kind of things, that they may have some stuff that would appeal to you.
I'll regret this, but I'm gonna
Yeah. The last time Mike and I were on a media session together, and somebody started going online looking up prices, it was $500 later between him, Mirth, and Ardwolf. So, yeah.
I'm gonna look tomorrow. Ask me on the forums what I bought.
Yeah, there you go. The one that I'm kicking myself for not getting when I was in there and I saw it, and again, all the role playing stuff was all half price. They had one of the Goodman Games reprints of X1, the original Isle of Dread, but it's Goodman Games is doing these reprints with these like inch thick hardcover books of a bunch of old classic modules. So it's the PDF of not the PDF, but it's a reprinting of the original classic module. It's the 5th edition reimplementation, and then it's like design notes and backstory and all kinds of other stuff with them, all kinds of extra material. So they've got one on S3, the Barrier Peaks one, the spaceship hiding in the mountain. They've got X1. They've got, I want to say they've got the whole Slavers series, the whole A1 through 4 Slavers series in one of these hardcovers. So a lot of the classic old TSR stuff we grew up with, these guys have completely redone. And I should have grabbed the X1 book when I saw it there, because I'll never see it that cheap again.
I bet they have the Dungeon Crawl Classic folks redid Metamorphosis Alpha. I saw it at Origins a couple of years ago.
Yeah, so I saw that at Gamers Armory a while back, and they've sold it and not reordered it because I haven't seen it there lately. I didn't look for that at Event Horizon. They may have it. I don't know.
Yeah.
So James, we were asking earlier. We were asking everybody else, what's the next game you've got coming up that you're going to be playing for yourself? I know for you that's an odd question because you're sort of maybe stuck playing things in the classroom there. But what's the next one you're playing for fun?
Next thing I'm continuing to fun. Yeah, I've been in a game of OCS Smolensk for all of the summer. We are slightly behind 1-to-1 time. So playing that by Vassal, and I just got told that it's my move. So that probably won't happen until Tuesday evening, but that's probably the next thing.
Yeah, and playing it in real time.
Well, we're getting about 2 turns a week, and it's half a week per turn, so...
So there you go. So that works out. So, how many OCS games are you in at any one time? Just the one?
Yeah, typically. I'm not sure if my brain could handle more of them.
Well, I'm asking because we've had this running gag with Ardwolf, with Gary, where he points out that the only reason he's not in more OCS games that would meet regularly, again, this was pre-plague, right? But the only reason he wasn't in more OCS games each week than he was because he was out of time, not because they weren't available. And he was already playing in like 3 a week. Yeah.
Well, that would keep your brain in shape.
Yes. That's quite insane. Look, since the plague hit, Gary's turned into a live streaming fiend, and he's got something hitting YouTube like literally every day. It's insane how much stuff he records and posts. But yeah, pre-pandemic he was in, I think it was 3 OCS games each week. So, which is crazy. So. James, if you're allowed to share for professional purposes, what's going to hit the table next in the classroom?
Battle for Moscow on Wednesday.
Okay.
The Victory Point Games version, though, we will wind up running it by Vassal.
Okay. So you guys, what, like 16 students going at once?
We can get in. We've got enough physical sets that we could run, assuming you've got one player in each. We've got 9 sets physically.
Okay.
And we secured permission from Frank Chadwick to create more for educational purposes at CGSC as needed.
That's awesome. That's cool
So,
that you did that.
in theory, lots. There's a limit to how many we can manage to sort of manage at any one time, but we've had all 9 going at once on occasion.
That's pretty cool. So, sorry, our one dude who was actually watching that wasn't one of us just said goodnight. So, yeah, John Stanley
I
was.
need to get ready to wrap it up too.
Yeah, well, we had said we were going to go from. We said we were going to go up until 10 o'clock, and we're getting pretty close to that. So, we've hit our time. We did what we said we were going to do, and then James showed up just in time to say goodnight.
Good night.
But no, this wasn't the busiest happy hour we've had, but that's fine because everybody got a chance to weigh in on stuff here, and so that was cool. Gordon, Mike, sorry about the confusion on whether it was over on Google or on Zoom. We were using.
Oh, yeah.
We were
Yeah,
intending to use Zoom.
when I saw the invitation originally, it didn't have the usual Zoom link that I was expecting to see, and for some reason I didn't see it down below. All I saw was the Google Meet thing, which I didn't quite understand, but I didn't have any other, I figured at least I can see if that does something, and it did. It got me you to send me the real link.
Yep, and here we are. I think Andy, was waiting for me to show up. He was already here when I got here. Dude's in Nova Scotia. What else he got to do?
Well, that's it, right, man? And it's dark, so I can't work on the deck.
There you go. So, all right. Well, cool. Parting words, final shots, Biggsy.
Yeah, it was good. Actually, this was my first one, so good stuff. You guys sort of eased me into it. There wasn't too much trauma. Looking forward to next time.
Yeah, we're rarely any more organized than this, in terms of.
And that's good because that's right my speed, man.
OJ's dad.
My first one too.
Yeah.
So.
Really? You hadn't made either of the ones before this?
Nope. No, I had not.
Wow.
Never come back again.
Glad you did. Yeah, the one of the first two that we had, James didn't realize we were live streaming. He's screen sharing with like stuff from his personal email or something. We're like, dude, take that down. So, I think didn't you have the pandemic beard going on at the time too?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So when you didn't have to be in the classroom.
And don't forget, Brant's got the little recording button going there.
Well, so that was the backup in case the live stream wasn't working. So, but the live stream was working. It did in fact come through tonight, and we even had people. Well, we had person chime in on there.
A person at least.
Yeah. Well, we at one point we had like 3 or 4 watching, but I think most of those were us just making sure the live stream was there. So.
Well, you had a Breakaway Republic go over with the
Yeah. All right. Hey, incidentally, outside of this, James, I still owe you a phone call today. So if you're free right after this, I'll give you a shout.
Yeah.
Cool.
I am.
we will do that. So whatever audience we may have had, or maybe going back and watching this after the fact, thank you for joining us. Appreciate you being here. Thank you guys for taking the time to hop in here and hang out on a happy hour with us. And we'll do this again sometime, probably in the next month or so, since we're all going to be locked in for the next year and a half anyway. Might as well.
Some of us still have a job that requires us to physically go to work every day, but.
Yeah, my condolences.
We've all got jobs that we have to physically go to work for. Just some of us have to go further than others.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Actually, it involves physically moving products, so it's sort of like I have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, fortunately, it's a small company. There's only 10 people, so I don't have to worry about interacting with zillions. So.
Yeah. I gotta go out to the office and plug into the work machine, and right now most of the action that I'm tracking and dealing with is in Roanoke, Virginia, so there's no danger of me getting called into the building, so it's perfect. It's great. So cool. Well, thanks guys, and we'll call this a wrap and say goodnight, and we'll do it all again in October.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
Good.
Sounds good.
Good to me. I'll be
Better,
See
gentlemen.
ya.
Cheers, guys.
All right, good night, everybody.
Good night.